The question is, does silicon promote growth or alleviate stress, or both? Okay, so this has always been, I think, so. Once again, being scientists, being curious in nature, we said we need to get at the bottom of this, because very often, if you do field experiments, you cannot control the stress. Okay, so at the end, you will see what appears as an increase in growth from one treatment to the next. When we were conducting experiments in highly controlled environment, we would not see difference. And if you put silicon on a perfectly healthy plant, and if you put silicon or no silicon on a perfectly healthy plant, you will not see difference. If you were put a stress, this is where the differences would be magnified. So the hypothesis that we raised, that the effects of silicon are manifest on the stress. So it's kind of like when you apply it, we almost call it like kind of an insurance policy. You make sure that if you have a stress, whether it be a pathogen stress, whether it be insect stress, or there's more evidence now, whether it be a water stress, that is when you really see the difference. So what we did, and if you go back to, we conducted the first, what we call a complete transcriptomic analysis. So we basically grew plants in different situations, perfect conditions with silicon, perfect conditions without silicon, conditions with silicon with a stress, and conditions without silicon and a stress. And the results that we obtained have shown that the effects of silicon were only based on the whole genomic level manifest when there was a stress. So when there was a stress, silicon would make the plant grow similar to a healthy plant. But if there was no stress, we could not find differences. That's why we're always, if people like show data, oh, it promoted the growth, we rather look at it at it prevented a reduction in yield because you had silicon. And the all the genetic data that we have to date would indicate that if there's no stress, you won't have it does not manifest by a growth promotion. I think it's always a matter of expectations. And it's always dangerous when you go to a grower, so you will get 40% in yield, you will get 30% in yield. And I've always been a bit critical of these unbelievable data or data that seem to show extreme yield growth, and then the growers try it, and then it's not working. They don't get what they expect, and then they say it's not working. So then the rumor that goes, and it's very hard, as we say, it's hard to build a good reputation, and you can have a bad reputation in one afternoon, so then if the word spreads when the grower, because in the end we can say whatever we want, if it's the growers don't get results that we claim, they're not going to use the product. So if Brooklyn, oh, you're going to get 30%. In one season, if you had a big stress, you may save that 30%. But if the grower expects that all the time, then you might say silicon's not working, and this is the word that's going to spread. So I think it's important when you try to promote these products to the growers and say, okay, if you use that, this is what you can expect. Especially nowadays, if you look at a map of the United States, you have hotspot of water stress. And then the disease incidence everywhere, like soybean is becoming big, you have soybean rust developing, everything. So then if you tell the growers, well, this year if you have a big infestation of soybean rust, or if you have a big water stress situation, well, if you use silicon, you will save a lot of money by preventing yield reduction because of these stresses. It ensures that you optimize your yield in spite of the different stresses that you may have. And the big advantage is that like growers will use fungicides in a preventive manner. So in a way it's kind of an insurance policy also. They do what they don't know if they're going to have the disease, they assume that they will, so they use the fungicide because they say, I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I think it's the same. And the beauty with silicon, it has broad spectrum. It will work against many diseases, insects, water stress, and it's not like a perfect solution in terms of, but as if you consider the benefits of adding silicon compared to the cost of fertilizing with it, I think it's a no-brainer in terms of if it should be used on a regular basis. But then again, you have to be sure, and that's the other point that oftentimes we disagree with, that you use it on a crop that is silicon competent, because not all plants were created equal in terms of silicon for reasons that we're studying in depth. Is that some plants will absorb silicon a lot more than others, and some will not absorb silicon at all. So sometimes you see reports of benefits of silicon on a plant that doesn't absorb silicons. We're always a bit dubious. So that's why our ultimate goal is to really understand the scientific basis of how silicon operates, interacts with plants, so that we can optimize its use and present it under a realistic view of benefits, and not kind of blow it out of proportions for later having to recant ourselves on what are the benefits.